So I have my own segment here on the show. It's called Kingdom Link, or the Kingdom Relation. How does this relate to the kingdom, or like God's principles and stuff? I found it when they were talking about magic, and that is the imagination and belief is what makes magic work.
James, oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that for real touched me on a deep level when she said that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the kingdom, faith and belief makes miracles happen. Like, you have to have that faith and that strong belief, and that's when miracles happen. So Siri, she's one of the oldest living beings in this world, even older than Frieren, and the most powerful mage.
And they call her the living grimoire, because she basically knows pretty much every magic spell that ever existed.
Exactly. So they were taking this test to become a first class mage, and the third test she was just doing interviews, and it was like the first person she's talked to, she failed them, and that person asked why, and this is what she said. She said, "In the world of magic, that which can't be visualized cannot be."
Mm-hmm.
You know, so she basically failed the person because that person couldn't even imagine themselves being a first class mage.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you were gonna bring up this other spot. The one that I'm thinking of is when they were in the dungeons and they were like fighting the doubles, you know. So in this dungeon, so the dungeon kind of reaches into your, I don't know, being and creates doubles, like literal physical copies of you to send out and fight you and whoever's in the dungeon. And they have, of course, all the exact abilities and weaknesses and stuff. But so one of the proctors of the test decided to go down with them just to observe. And of course, she's strong AF. And the dungeon's like,
mage, yep.
Right. And the dungeon's like, all right, we're going to make a copy of her too. And so they're like, that's not fair. But one of the mages was like, they had run into this copy, and she's like, I can't even imagine myself defeating this. Like, this is impossible.
Yep.
Therefore, my magic is not going to work. And the way that they explained it, I was like, that actually makes sense. You know, it's like the power of imagination, but it's real. You know? But
and so were you going to bring up the other part in the dungeon where there was a person who was the opposite of her?
Oh, yes. So there is a mage who, it was kind of, I think they kind of took a book from Hunter x Hunter, because this mage had killed somebody in the previous exam, one of the proctors themselves. This dude had this like impenetrable cloak, and like the test was if anybody could knock him back a step, that would pass.
Yep.
Of course, nobody could do it, and she just walks up and literally just slices this dude in half. And she has a conversation with one of the proctors later. She was like, I grew up around fabric, and my sister or whoever cutting fabric and stuff, I just visualized cutting fabric, and that was it. And I was like, what?
When she came up across that first class mage, this first class mage fights with her hair. Mm-hmm. And her hair is very strong and powerful. It moves like Medusa's snakes, but it extends and stuff. And she was like, oh, I can imagine I can defeat her.
Right. Because
I can cut her hair. Like, hair is cuttable.
Right, exactly. And because and it's also because of their abilities. So each mage has their own kind of innate ability, and that also plays into it. And so this particular mage was like, I know my ability can take down this first class mage because she runs on instinct. Everybody else kind of thinks about how to attack the next person, but she runs so purely on instinct. She didn't even think about it. She just was like, you know what, my body says I can do this, so I can do it. And she went and she killed this double of this first class mage, which should have been impossible. I just thought it was really clever, how they can have a discrepancy and really extremely powerful opponents to one that's not as powerful, but hey, the underdog can still come out and it still makes sense.
So how that relates to the Bible, like what God says, so in Matthew 21:22 it says, and if you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Mm-hmm. And then 8:13, this was about the centurion who had a sick servant, and he was like, Lord, my servant is sick, heal him. And Jesus was like, all right, come on, let's go and do it. And then Syrian was like, you just say the word and he'll be healed. Like, I'm not even worthy for you to come back to my place.
Right. Yeah.
So then Jesus said to him, go your way, and as you have believed, so let it be done for you. And the servant was healed that same hour.
And low key, that kind of tells me that even Jesus was a little surprised. I can imagine when he said that, Jesus being like, "Oh, this dude gets it. Oh, okay, you right. It's done."
Matthew 9:18 and then 21 to 25. This was talking about two different miracles that happened at once, kind of. Mm-hmm. And this was the woman who was bleeding, and then the man who had a daughter that had died. Mm. So while he spoke these things to them, behold, a ruler came and worshipped him, saying, my daughter has just died, but come and lay your hand on her, and she will live. Like, it was like she might live, like she will live. Mm-hmm. And so, skipping ahead, while he was moving through the crowd to go to the ruler, the woman who had that bleeding for years and went everywhere, couldn't breathe, she said to herself, if only I may touch his garment, I shall be made well. And then we all know Jesus felt the power, so he turned to her like, who touched me and all that? And then he looked at her and he said, be of good cheer, daughter, your faith has made you well. Mm-hmm. And the woman was made well from that hour. Mm-hmm. And then when Jesus came to the ruler's house, he saw like the flute players in the noisy crowd, and they were wailing and all that, and he said to them, make room, for the girl is not dead but sleeping. They ridiculed him though, because they didn't believe or nothing. So he moved them out the way, and then he went and took her by the hand, and the girl rose. Mm-hmm. So other time, the man's faith was like, if you say the word, my servant will be healed. And Jesus like, all right, go ahead, as you believe, it will be done. This man said, the ruler whose daughter died said, if you just lay your hands on her, mm-hmm. she will raise up. And so he took her hand, and she arose, according to what the man's faith said. Yeah. And then the woman, according to her faith, if I just touch Jesus, not him touching me, I touch him. Yeah. Without his knowledge, I'll be made whole. Yeah. And she was made whole.
And see, what I'm even reading into that is, you talk about having that strong faith and that belief. I'm even seeing having a strong will, just the will, like that woman just reaching out, saying, I'm going to take the initiative, I'm going to reach out, and I'm going to do and create an opportunity for me to get my healing and my blessing. Uh-huh. And going back to Frieren, that's also part of it, is will. The people that got denied for that first class mage, they didn't even, they got rejected for one reason or another for lack of will. And that's another thing that makes Fern so powerful. And the first time I see it kind of playing out is when Fern and Stark are going up against the first demons that we meet in the show. And you think they're like all powerful, but then Fern pretty easily destroys this dude and even takes him by surprise. And Fern is like, yeah, honestly, you're probably actually stronger than I am, but Frieren has taught me better than that. And she ends up kind of having her own will, and because she could have run, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, in their world, your imagination and your will is what powers the strength of your magic and how far you go in the magic world. So, and Fern has taken her, it is insane that she has just basic magic, but through sheer will over the years of training under Frieren, she is now like on course to be a stronger mage than Frieren herself.
Yep.